Warning: the following program contains extreme coarse language and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is extremely advised. How's it going? It's ADC. It is Talking Truth. It is topic-free Talking Truth Thursday, and have a very special guest with us tonight. Afeni, amazing activist, friend, comrade, sister from another mister, from our neighbors in the south. Afeni, welcome to Talking Truth.
Hi, super excited to be here. Excited to be here with you, comrade.
We're excited to have you, and like I said, you've been busy. You were saying before we jumped on, and I apologize for the intro, interrupted you, something about imperialism and feminism, and I don't believe what was being said is truthful, but please carry on with that thought.
Oh yeah, we met. I forgot exactly what her title is, but she's a very high-ranking official within Lockheed Martin's like executives or whatever. Her name's Nancy, and Nancy told us all that imperialism is feminist. So I learned something new today when I met Nancy. So I was really excited to meet Nancy and stand behind her and educate her a little bit. And here we are. It's been a long day. It's been an eventful one. And the anti-war movement is starting to ramp up. And I think it's just really important for those of us on the left to take the reins of the anti-war movement back, especially in America, because while there is some ideological agreement on the right that we should be anti-interventionist, it's not ideological agreement that lands in the same ending point as where the left would like to go. It's just really important that we take control of the reins. So, of course, I was being sarcastic. Of course, imperialism is not feminist, but it's just really interesting to see up close and personal how these people talk about their positions in the world, how they talk about what their worldview is and what they believe that they are doing and upholding, and how they believe that they're empowering women simply because it's a pink painted fingernail that is pushing the button on the drone strike. Like, I don't understand. But yeah, so really fun day of direct action, and I'm just really excited to do more things like that.
And so, speaking of that direct action,
Martin are making a killing off of killing women.
That seems like someone behind the Palestinian flag that I recognize. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm so sure, and I was trying to hold it up without it getting ripped. Yeah. I just look like that guy. I can't remember what his name is. Off Home Improvement, that's looking over the fence.
Oh, Wilson.
Yeah, it's me. I was Wilson with the Palestinian flag today.
Why are you celebrating women as war profiteers? How is this women's empowerment? Lockheed Martin is making a killing off of killing women and girls all over the world. This is not equity. This is pinkwashing. Land and women are not for conquest. The F-35 program that Nancy and Lockheed Martin are making a killing off of killing should be ground. We should be freeing Palestine, concentrating on combating the climate crisis that disproportionately hurts and kills women and girls.
How are you empowering the women that you're massacring with your weapons? How are you empowering women who are suffering because of wars that you're profiting off of?
Shame.
Imperialism is not feminist, period. Like, at all. Diversity and imperialism does not make us better people. Just because you have a woman pressing the button versus a man pressing the button does not mean that we're not ruining innocent lives all across the globe.
Your definition of equity that you used earlier, that is a shame that you used that.
They let us talk for a really long time. I was very surprised.
I am surprised.
All over this world are being destroyed by people in power, no matter their gender.
Oh.
This is a shame.
Oh, there you go.
Stop making a killing off of killing. Ground the F-35.
Imperialism isn't feminist.
Imperialism isn't feminist. Imperialism isn't feminist. Imperialism isn't feminism.
Oh, look at all the white privileged people that are all upset at that. Holy crap. The woman with the resting bitch face that was beside you, she actually was holding the microphone. So that was shocking that she actually was letting the audio go through. But yeah, no, looking at that, and I'm seeing a lot of people of the global majority being represented on that stage. And I'm going, So how much internalized white supremacy was at that meeting today?
A crazy amount. I was honestly surprised about how they were talking about it. I forgot exactly what the author's name was, but there was the keynote speaker. I wish I had actually brought the paper up here so I could just read all the names. But the keynote speaker that spoke before we got any footage, she was basically saying something about how diversity within military leadership is important because you need spies that can blend in. And I was like, girl, what? Like, not because like, we're so like smart and capable or whatever. And even if like, but simply because like we need more brown and black bodies to infiltrate and destroy communities that look like them. So there was a lot of internalized white supremacy. There was just a very authoritarian tone to everything they were saying. And something that I hear my friend Brianna Joy Gray talk about a lot is the weaponization of identity politics and how it bastardizes what the true meaning and radical meaning of identity politics was, which is actually an intersectional politics that focuses on the liberation of the most oppressed among us, because we know that if we free the most oppressed person, that we're freeing and liberating everyone. But instead, not only just the military industrial complex, but many leaders in the Democratic Party as well have used identity politics basically as a cover to say that, sure, we are starving women in Afghanistan, starving children in Afghanistan with sanctions after we destroyed their country, but it's a woman doing it. There's a woman CEO. There are women generals now Air Force, Air Force personnel that have uteruses, they can have maternity clothing. Like, I don't understand how they don't see how backwards it is to, and out of one side of your face, say that we want to support women, we want to empower women, but on the other side, you see drone strikes that are literally bombing weddings, bombing homes, killing children. We are polluting waters all around the globe, even in our own country, where people's children, women, all different type of people have to drink from these things. We're stealing resources from countries all over the globe. And none of that is feminist. It is not feminist to tear down communities. It is not representative of identity politics, of what the true meaning of identity politics is, to have a Black woman like Kamala Harris standing in front of a bunch of immigrants and migrants and people that are seeking asylum and telling them don't come. That's not feminist. It is not actually ideologically aligned with the Combahee River Collective, who coined the phrase identity politics. And I think it's just really important, as not only just as a Black woman, but just as people on the left, for us to make that distinction, especially right now. We're in such I would say like a vernacular war with the right about what wokeness is and how we actually define it, how it shows up in our lives and the community that it actually came from. Today was really interesting, but it was just like a little taste of what we are dealing with on a regular basis, and how identity politics, how feminism, how the people that are in power use these things as weapons to oppress us more and, smile while they're doing it.
100%. And I mean, I like to usually use the, I don't know if you've seen the show Mrs. America that was on. So that's basically how I describe when we're looking at, especially the white privileged women that are in power, or that continue the white supremacist or the colonialized or imperialism system, under that guise of, like you said, of the feminist. And as a white privileged straight male, man, do I start shitstorms by saying that. But it's not coming from I'm saying this because you're a female. I'm saying it because the fact that you're weaponizing your position to basically decimate the rest of people that you're supposed to be bringing up. So when we've got people that are on the left that are talking about, well, I don't want to be called this or that, or the identity politics bullshit. But clearly they're getting a really good paycheck for spewing this crap. What are you doing for the people that you supposedly are representing? And like for yourself, for Renee, for others that are out there on the ground, you were there on, was it this? I mean, so many
March
days.
18th.
March
That was like
18th.
last
So
Saturday. Yeah.
last Saturday. So we're going there. So you were there. You were on the ground in DC. So you traveled there from New York. That's correct.
No, I live in DC.
Oh, you live in DC, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So you traveled from. You went and you were on the ground, boots on the ground, with this movement. And what was your initial reaction? What were your feelings when you saw the people? Was it the response that you were hoping for, or I get like, and how did you feel afterwards?
I had mixed feelings, right? Because there is an argument that says that coalescing with people that you would not normally agree with can be a good thing sometimes, especially if you are able to actually move them to your position, not you meeting them where they are. So there was a little bit of frustration because I feel like, because there is just a general lack of empathy amongst a lot of white leftists about why it is important to align yourselves with people that agree on the tenets of basic human rights and of humanity, like and just respecting people, because it's really not like, it's not like anybody's begging, I don't know, Tulsi Gabbard to transition, like nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that we only have to say the word, like the words birthing person or people with uteruses and things like that. Like when I talk about mothers, I talk about mothers, and I also say, like, people that have the capacity to give birth, just to encompass and include the people like trans men, like non-binary femmes that get pregnant. Also to say that, also to acknowledge that there are women that do not have the capacity to give birth, and they're still women regardless of that. And so being at that rally, it was a little frustrating because I feel like there could have been a larger presence if we were able to actually break down some of that communication, if we were actually able to have real hard and uncomfortable conversations about what it means to kind of deconstruct some of the white supremacy that is in all of us. Even me, like as a Black woman, I've had my own struggles with like colorism. I've had my own struggles with anti-Blackness and all these different things. And as a lesbian, I was homophobic for a very long time in my life because I grew up in a homophobic family. I'm Jamaican and Panamanian. Like it's not seen as acceptable in our cultures to be homosexual, or to be trans, or to be queer at all, or on the spectrum of queerness. So, I think that it's just really important for people to unpack those biases and unpack the roots of where those things come from, because we find that a lot of that stuff comes from colonialism and the things that we've been conditioned into. But I was also really excited to be at the rally because, there were so many different people there. It was a very inclusive rally. We had Chairman O'Malley from the African People's Socialist Party, excuse me, come and speak. We had Reverend Annie Chambers, Medea Benjamin, and there were a lot of really fantastic anti-war voices that were able to come together and have these really, strong conversations right out on the White House lawn. So that was really good. The march was really beautiful. And they also did like a teach-in. So it was like a day full of events that was really centered around grounding people in what the anti-war movement is, grounding people in the importance of fighting back and standing up and dismantling the systems of violence that we are conditioned to participate in, and just really just being in community, which is something that I'm always grateful to do, with people that are like-minded, and also changing some minds of people that were just in Lafayette Square, because there were people that were, of course, it's a tourist, area. So there were people that weren't necessarily there for the rally, but that did end up stopping and listening and, finding some agreement with the things that we were saying, even if they wanted to push back on, what, like, support for Ukraine and things like that. No, I think it's just really important for anti-war voices to really denounce war everywhere, regardless of how we feel about the governments, regardless of how much history we know about, like, for example, like a country like Russia, and the understanding that the Soviet Union is no longer in existence. Like, the capitalist country that we see now, that is Russia, is not Stalin's Russia. It is not the Russia that beat back the Nazis back in World War II. It's not the same thing. So there are faults on Vladimir Putin's side that I feel like some people are not willing to actually articulate, because they don't want to be aligned with the CIA in any way, or their talking points, or blah, 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 which I get, what I'm saying? Like, but sometimes I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. A broken clock is right twice a day. It's true that, it's true that while Vladimir Putin should not have invaded Ukraine, while it is also true that the people of Crimea and the Donbass region, over 90% of them are ethnically Russian. Some of them are Russian speaking. A lot of them want to be a part of Russia. So I guess it kind of gets to a point where, do we believe in sovereignty or not?
Yeah.
So, I just think it's really important to kind of break that stuff down for people, and really get them to understand that we're not necessarily calling for Putin to just run roughshod and absorb the whole country of Ukraine into Russia. But what we are saying is that there are nuances in this conversation, and a civil war that's been going on far before the invasion ever happened, that does bring very important context into how we got into this moment right now. The steps of aggression that the United States and NATO have taken in supporting this proxy war against Russia, blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, for example. Those are blatant acts of war that the U.S. has taken on. And I think it's important for all of us to understand that our tax dollars are paying for whatever covert scuba divers they had to go down there and plant explosives on the Nord Stream 1 and 2. That's our money. It is our tax dollars that they are sending over, with these tanks and all these different defense systems that they're sending to Ukraine as well. And it's important that the American people have a say in how we spend our tax dollars, especially when we have things like what's happening in East Palestine, where there are Americans that literally yet another city on the list in America where Americans cannot drink the water, they cannot breathe the air, they cannot stay in their hometown because it is literally unsafe. And yet and again, we have another sacrifice zone. So while they're spending all this money doing that, while Miss Nancy is sitting back talking about the F-35 program that Lockheed Martin is funding, that is creating with the help of and the funding of the U.S. government. While they're doing that, people are dying. Their lives are getting ruined. So I think it's just really important for us to contrast that and to talk about the fact that the United States is not the great savior of the world that we try to make them out to be. So yeah, sorry. Like I said, I can go on.
It's all good. You're making great points, and you're right. The United States is not the greatest thing. I mean, I always piss off Americans this way. Guess what? You never won a war. There's not one war in history that the Americans have won. Anyway,
except for the Civil War. That's about it. And we didn't even win that one.
That's still fighting. And I'm in Canada, and we're just as useless in regards of, like, historically, we're awful. I mean, if you're looking at the Indigenous residential schools, we were the blueprint. It was Americans that came up to Canada to learn what the British were doing in destroying the lives of the Indigenous peoples here in Canada and murdering children. And like, oh, it is so repulsive and disgusting of what happened. And looking at it from a white perspective, and people are going, yeah, you're white, whatever. I said, yeah, but you got to understand the history that we were taught was whitewashed. We were not taught true history. We're now learning actual historical information that's been censored from us. And when we get into the shit that's going on today, where Congress doesn't have a fucking clue of what they're doing or what TikTok is, or they think it's still a song by Kesha, they want it gone. They want it gone because it's a voice of the people. It's a voice of people that don't need to have $1 million behind them to buy ads or to promote their stuff. You can have a message like the Midwestern Marxists have a message talking about Marxism that goes viral, that can get hundreds of thousands of subscribers and followers, and then like that, it's gone. They get shut down. They get shut down because of the fact they're speaking out against the imperialist system. And you brought that up. Very good points about Russia. Like, people are going, they don't like what I say. I'm Ukrainian. I'm Scottish Ukrainian for heritage. So when it's St. Patrick's Day, everyone's Irish. No, except for the Scottish. We're still Scottish, and that's it. We don't become Irish. The other side is the Ukrainian piece, and it's a struggle because my stepfather is Ukrainian. Like, still has the accent, like grew up in small town Saskatchewan, still can't say his T's or TH's. It's Matt and Bet and all those sort of things. But it's a narrative that we're being pushed on, that the Ukraine is the good guys and Russia's the bad guys. I'm not saying Putin is a good guy. Don't get me wrong. Putin is a
bad guy,
villain. He's a villain. He's a super villain. But we're sitting there going, which one is Thanos? If you want to go in comparison to like the Marvel universe, we don't have good guys and bad guys here. We have guys that are both bad on both sides. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand. I'm trying to get people to understand the societal that we can't just have the white hat. Just because you put a white hat on a person doesn't make them a hero. It just means that they're wearing a white hat. They could be wearing a pink hat. They could be wearing a fucking pride shirt. It doesn't matter. If internally or they're doing that shit by blowing up other countries and using the pride and the 2S LGBTQIA plus community support as a shield to shield them from being called out for their white supremacy or from their colonialism, that needs to be called out. But people just get this pass going, oh, well, they supported this, so they're good. Or this guy's not Putin, so he's good. Well, no, if you actually go into the historical thing, like you said, the people of the Donbass region, most of them are Russian and want to be Russian. And it's not they want to be Putin Russian. They actually want to be members of the Soviet Union again. That's not going to happen. But they sure shit don't want to be Nazi Ukraine. And people got to understand that what the Ukraine was before 2014 was a democratic society. There was an elected official, the elected leader, who was overthrown by a U.S. coup that put in Zelensky. I mean, when you have Zelensky as a comedian going in, and there's the video of him talking about we should give out the Mein Kampf. I'm going, you're joking about Hitler. Yes, I understand you're you're a person of Jewish faith, but you're fucking joking about Hitler, and then you become this thing. Like, you told these jokes as a stand-up routine, and then suddenly you become this. So when we're looking at on the side here in Western nations and looking at our comedians who have become political analysts, that's what scares the hell out of me, because they're just saying, oh, he's just a comedian and he's got to stand for this. Well, Zelensky was just a comedian and had a couple of opinions, and suddenly he's the leader of the Western world. what happens when we decide, okay, we don't want the duopoly, which I totally agree with, but we're going to bring in this right-wing, basist, centrist, fascist party, and we're going to have a particular comedian who speaks somewhat on the left to be the leader of this fascist party and bring fascism to the forefront, because right now it's just underneath fascism that we're dealing with. People need to understand we're in a democracy, but it's a bought and paid for democracy by the corporate oligarchs. Biden, yeah, he's got all, like, he's the most powerful man in the world and could fucking give his veto power on anything, but he sure shit ain't going to do that. And it was a choice to bring Biden in, because if historically, everyone wants to talk about history here, Biden was the most pro-war, pro-cop, anti-black, anti-LGBT person in the history of U.S. politics in our era. I mean, I'm sure there's ones that were worse than him, but openly, I mean, I go back to the Clarence Thomas trials and how he belittled and made her feel awful when she's calling out a sexist abuser who suddenly is on the Supreme Court, whose wife starts an insurrection. Like, we're just allowing this shit to happen. And like you said, we're in an echo chamber. These conversations have to happen. People need to understand that it's not black, it's not white, it's not fucking Russia, it's not the Ukraine, it's no war, because wars only help the elite. When you have that money going to the Ukraine, these billions of dollars, I don't even know what the fuck number was. I know our comrade Amira for Endemic Times was looking at the numbers, and I think it came up to $78 billion or something so far that has been provided by Western nations to the Ukraine. And that's just orders for weapons from where you were visiting with Lockheed Martin, and that it's not actual money going to the Ukraine. Like, when you're sending money or we're supporting the Ukrainians, you're supporting the war machine. That's all that's being supported. You're not supporting the people on the ground. And if you are supporting the people on the ground, we're supporting the white privileged people, because the people of the global majority that were in the Ukraine were ran out of town and were not allowed to go to other countries because of racism and colonialism.
Absolutely. And I think also something that people fundamentally don't understand about the aid to Ukraine is a lot of those weapons, they're talking about manufacturing them, which means they're literally just giving out contracts to these weapons manufacturers for things that don't exist yet. So they get the money now. I mean, as far if the U.S. has anything to say about it, this war will go on for 20 years, just like we were in Afghanistan. It'll go on for as long as the U.S. can actually drag it out, right? But say it takes like 5 years for them to actually manufacture all the weapons that they were contracted to do, but there's a ceasefire brokered in the next 2. They still got their money up front. Like, they're still going to collect that money, and none of those things will actually go to benefit the Ukrainian people like they're telling you they do. And sending lethal aid in a already highly escalated situation, when the U.S. and Britain are responsible for getting in the way of peace talks time and time again, it's not helpful, because at the end of the day, of course, Russians are dying as well. Russian soldiers are dying, but Ukrainian civilians are getting the shit end of the stick right now. They are getting their homes literally decimated. And of course, this is a reality for, a lot of countries in the global south that are brown people. And I feel like, just gotta be real. A lot of the reason why we're paying so much attention to this is because, like they said, when they first invaded, these are white people with blonde hair and blue eyes, and they just can't believe they're going through this turmoil. But Somalians got bombed the same day that Russia invaded Ukraine, and there was not a peep about it. I guess those black people, that live in Somalia, they're used to it, I guess. That's what they deserve. So it's just very, very interesting to think about. And even and it also lets you know that it really doesn't even matter if you are a working class white person. No matter where you live in the globe, they will sacrifice you for their own ends. And that means that they will literally put as many Ukrainians in the meat grinder as they possibly can in order to make money and to keep an arm stranglehold on the global economy. Because even this peace deal that is being brokered through China, you have U.S. media pundits that are saying, "Oh, this is right out of China's playbook. They're trying to do this, and they're trying to get Russia on their side, or maybe they're just trying to broker some peace and do the diplomatic work that the U.S. was supposed to be doing." Like, I don't even understand why we have a Department of State, because honestly, the Department of State is just the soft coup. There's the soft coup department, and then you have the Department of Defense. That's the hard coup. We're going to do the soft coup, and we're going to do it all secretive through the State Department and the CIA, and we're just going to do like some color revolution stuff, or we're going to do the hard coup through the DOD and send weapons or send boots on the ground and do all the things. Like, either way, though, like, the only thing that the U.S. really knows how to do is be a hammer, so everything is a nail. So it's just really frustrating that I feel like so many of these conversations that we're having are so shallow. And I think they're also very devoid of morality and of understanding of, okay, at the end of the day, so if Russia does get the Donbass and, like the Crimean regions of Ukraine, and that actually ends up being a permanent part of Russia, okay, the U.S. has Guam, Alaska, Hawaii. They try to say that Philippines has been let go as one of our colonies, but that's a neo-colony with the Philippines. We're strangling Cuba's economy with all types of sanctions and embargoes. We have so many proxy states. There are over 800 military bases all over the world, and no one even bats an eye. China builds one military base outside of their borders, and people are up in arms. And now here we are. We have memos coming out of top military leaders that are saying that we're expecting to be at war with China by 2025. So as far as I'm just kind of looking at this like, okay, so not only are y'all about to continue this war in Ukraine for God knows how long. Now you also want to add, war with China on top of that. And then on top of that, we're funding a dirty war in Syria. And then on top of that, we are supplying weapons to, occupied Palestine and the illegitimate Israeli government to continue that occupation, that apartheid state. And then on top of that, but then we're mad that China's trying to broker peace.
And on top of that, you still haven't. You left everyone hung out to dry in Afghanistan, especially the translators that worked with the military machine to actually win whatever war or to hold off the Taliban for that long. So we just wanted to show 3 screens, and we were talking about the difference between refugees that are white and blonde and blue-eyed and ones that are members of the global majority. So Canada, everyone thinks we're this happy-go-lucky country that welcomes everyone. So yes, welcome Afghans. This is our response. So you're welcomed. We've had 29,010 Afghan refugees arrived in Canada since 2021. What we're doing is working hard to settle at least 40,000. So you're looking at maybe another 11,000 or just under 11,000 to go. Eligible for this, we've got this great promo video that we won't show. All the resettlement programs, special measures for Afghan applications, help for Canadians, Afghans. Our commitment is to launch a humanitarian resettlement program for Afghan refugees. Okay, so that's one. So the other one we just mentioned was Syria. So here's what we do for the Syrians. We welcome the refugees over the span of 100 days, beginning in 2015, work with Canadians coast to coast, where we welcomed 25,000 Syrians in 100 days. And this is what we're going to do. We got volunteer management handbook and all those sort of things. And then we go to what everyone wants to help because of, they won't say it, but we all know it's blonde hair, blue eyes. So here's your immigration measures and support for Ukrainians and their families. We've extended the program. New dates to when it's going to be. You can apply for authorization to travel to Canada. You can get help in Canada, get financial assistance. I didn't see that on any of the stuff from the Syrian or Afghan refugees. And here's what you can do in your first 2 weeks in Canada, because we're giving financial assistance to help Ukrainian families who are in Canada under the Canada-Ukraine authorization. And you can decide where to live and open up a bank account. All you need is a social insurance number, which will help you get all these different things. And when people look at what is happening here, looking at if they have the actual number here. Oh yeah, there we go. So what you can expect to receive: $3,000 for each adult 18 or older, and $1,500 for each child 17 and under. And welcome to Canada, and we will help you get jobs, and we'll help you get, I'm a member of a refugee Facebook group based out of Calgary, and I joined it to help with, we did a fundraiser for Syrian refugees here in Lacombe, and so I wanted to see what we could do to help other refugees that were struggling for housing or jobs or whatever. And so that's why I joined. Well, now it's all Ukrainians. So now it's all people going, I come to Calgary on this date and I need this house and I need this and my wife and my 3 kids. And I'm going, so let's calculate that. So it's you and your wife. That's $6,000. Your 3 kids is another $4,500. So you're coming to the country with almost $11,000 to start. The Syrians and the Afghan refugees are coming with nothing, and they will get nothing, and they will continue to be treated like shit because they're not blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And this is coming from a guy of Ukrainian descent who's looking at it going, this is utter bullshit, because we're not helping everyone. This isn't a refugee program. This is just slightly different than fucking Kamala Harris going, don't come. If you're not a member of the global majority, we are free to welcome you in. You will have a job. And if anyone thinks this isn't a way to continue the white, historically white game plan to increase Caucasian blood in the system, I don't know what to say, because the fact is, with statistically, China and India have the most population in the world. So when they immigrate to the United States or to Canada or wherever, and they have children in those countries, that means those children will be members of the global majority. They won't be white. They won't be European. They won't be the oppressed or the oppressors, the colonizers that everyone wants. So how do we get around that? We start a war with a white country and we bring all those people into these other countries under the guise of it's wartime, so we have to save them because they're refugees. And I'm going, no. Because I'm seeing a lot of people, they're posting their pictures before coming to Canada. Number one, they don't have to pay for their flights. They're getting this money. And their pictures are them, and their pictures are them having Starbucks, taking selfies and influencers in Kyiv before coming here. And I'm going, this isn't the war-torn country. This isn't Afghanistan, where it's been blown to shit back to the Middle Ages multiple times. This isn't Palestine that is being oppressed by Israeli troops on a daily basis. And if people don't understand what's coming down the pipe, when you've got a piece of shit like Netanyahu on Tucker Carlson spewing his bullshit about Israeli power and the propaganda from the Zionist side, and this isn't about this isn't about anti-Semitism, people. This is about Zionism. This is about Zionism against people of the global majority in the Palestinian region, which is actually the country. Israel didn't exist before they occupied Palestine. If we go into that Bible that everyone wants to quote and saying that we all follow the Bible, well, the original Bible had Palestine. It didn't have anything to say about fucking Israel. And just on the aside, when we're talking about the Ukraine, and I might just be throwing darts here, but how can someone tell me that they're not trying to make the Ukraine the Israel of Europe? To have that foothold in Europe from the American imperialist system. I mean, that's why they're pushing for Taiwan. That's why they're pushing for they want to fight with China, because they want to have full, like, it's about a giant game of Risk. All they want to do is take over the world and take all the resources. And it's not take all the resources so our people can have resources. We'll kill our people in the whole process of that. Like you said, of the Nord Stream bombings, like of the East Palestine poisonings, the fact that you have railway workers that have been forced to work by Jim Crow Joe and his pro-union bullshit, to allow them to have to ignore the safety of those trains that go through every community across the Western nation with chemicals, but they're not labeled chemicals because that's too much red tape. So we have to take away that. But that was taken away by the Republicans in those red states. So while we really don't need to worry about East Palestine, because that's a red state, they voted for Trump. So they're fucked. They're on their own. They don't deserve our help. That's Mississippi. They don't fucking deserve our help. They're in the South. They're beneath us, sort of thing. But if shit comes down in a blue state, sure as shit, there's going to be, we've got to come together. We got to do this. I mean, fuck, AOC flew from fucking New York to Texas to fucking provide water and supplies for people. It wasn't for the people that were poor. She wasn't flying to fucking Jackson, Mississippi. She wasn't fucking driving to Flint, Michigan, or fucking anywhere near East Palestine. So this is the whole thing of when people say, well, you're a Republican. I'm not a Republican. I hate them all. I hate every fucking person that's a capitalist, that's all about exploiting labor and killing people. When you have your leaders of your own country, including the country of Canada, killing their own people because they just don't want to deal with them, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, and it's also really crazy because, just because I wanted to just add something to something that you said before is, in the U.S., they gave Ukrainian people free rides to HBCUs. They don't even give disadvantaged Black children free rides to HBCUs. And it just goes to show that the just blatant disrespect and the lack of actual care and the deficit of humanity that a lot of our leaders have. Because while you have, people that are in poverty, that are looking for opportunities within our own countries, we not only are we going out of our way to create a bunch of proxy states all across the globe, and while ignoring these domestic issues, we're telling people that they should be so lucky. Like the U.S. government is telling us that we should be so lucky to live in America because at least we're not in one of the countries that they're bombing. But if you think about it, like, the U.S. has no issue dropping bombs on U.S. soil. We know that from the MOVE bombing of 1989. And if the history is telling me anything, history always repeats itself. So you're telling me that there isn't going to be another point in time in history if we keep going down the path that we're going down, if there are more people that decide to dissent and actually get really tired, like genuinely tired of the inequity and the disparities that exist in this country. You don't think that they're going to try to quell that dissent through violent state repression like they did before? Absolutely. Like, and I think that like you were saying, like the whitewashing of history, the lack of understanding that a lot of people that live in the West have of the things that the West has done and the ways and the different movements that have come up and the ways that, you know, Western governments and leaders have violently crushed those movements. How the way that a lot of, especially, you know, people in America, we always talk about how, you know, we denounce anti-Semitism and all that stuff. Like, that's the reason why they constantly, like, you'll see U.S. leaders constantly try to conflate the state of Israel to Jewish people. And even though they try to tell us that it's anti-Semitic, when like we don't even do it, but the fact that if there's anything that even comes close to that that implication, then we're anti-Semites, blah, blah, blah. But they do it all the time. But this is the country. The racial casteism that existed in this country is what inspired Hitler in the first place. And not only that, he saw what we was doing. He said, y'all wilding a little bit, so I'm going to do a little less than that. But I see where you're going, though. That's fucking crazy. Like, that is insane. That is insane. Like, we are refusing to actually, not even that we're refusing. I think the U.S. government is refusing to actually tell the truth. That just like how there was a resolution passed, I think it was in 2017, about how they were going to release all of the documents on JFK, like, you know, on the JFK assassination. And they've withheld thousands of documents, thousands, even with the passing of the resolution. And that's supposed to be like our great democratic system that's working so well. But we have, not only do we have things like that, but you have a democratic president who has this black and South Asian woman who is his vice president. And at the same time, you have states like Florida and Texas that are banning sororities and black sororities and fraternities. You have states like Florida that are going out of their way to whitewash history to the point where they're not even talking about civil rights leaders. In Florida and in Texas, they're not even talking about civil rights leaders. And what really scares me is we are on a footing that if we are not very intentional about what we do for the next year and a half as far as these Democratic primaries is concerned, Ron DeSantis is going to be president. And not only that, he is setting the stage for other governors around the country to do the same exact things that they're doing in Florida, in Mississippi, in Wisconsin, in Oklahoma, in Ohio, all of those states that have super blood red state legislatures are going to follow suit with this footing. And what a lot of people also need to understand is that 70% of the black population in America lives in these states. They lived in the South where their ancestors worked for free. Yep. So it's just really frustrating when we're like on the left saying, hey, like, it's cool, like, you know, like, we have these black faces in these high places, but it's not doing anything to actually benefit the black community. We have these black faces in these high places. We have these presidential candidates that pay lip service to these things. But when it comes down to actually going to the mat to fight against blatant fascism, to fight against the whitewash, the history is already whitewashed. they're literally just putting white out on all the pages at this point. Like, if that is really where we are headed, then what exactly is the game plan? Because it can't be to just sit on the internet and complain, and it definitely can't be to just sit back and watch Ron DeSantis sweep because he's decided to take some positions that are farther to the left than Biden while still maintaining his authoritarian intentions. So I really,
100%.
I just really want us to all get on a page.
On the page.
So
here's the thing. So I was watching a documentary on Walter Winchell, and I don't know if you're familiar with Walter Winchell. Basically, he was the innovator of TMZ, and he did it in the vaudevillian days. But one of the big things that popped up was his response to Charles Lindbergh. And for me, being from Canada and learning about Lindbergh, all we learn about is Lindbergh and planes and that sort of thing. And then it gets more along the lines of
Speaker is a famed aviator and American hero, Charles Lindbergh. Lindbergh is a Nazi sympathizer, an avid opponent of U.S. involvement in the overseas conflict.
France has now been defeated, and despite the propaganda and confusion of recent months, it is now obvious that England is losing war. I believe
the call is to abandon America's friend and ally.
And I have been forced to the conclusion that we cannot win this war for England regardless of how much assistance we send. That is why the America First Committee has been formed.
Lindbergh and the National America First Committee rail against any involvement in the war. Hundreds of thousands of citizens agree. Since the war began in 1939, Americans have seen and heard about the devastation in Europe.
Adolf Hitler's all-out attack on Poland makes the long-dreaded European war a certain.
But many are convinced that stopping Adolf Hitler is not worth the sacrifice of American lives.
This time America should keep out, and I know I will.
I haven't the slightest idea of European affairs.
I think we should stay out of it entirely.
And all our efforts should be made to keep out of the fight.
Let Europe fight our own battles. They mean nothing to us.
Some Americans publicly admire the Nazis and envision a fascist America. In February 1939, some 20,000 American Nazis rally in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, so that's what people need to understand. You get DeSantis there, that's what you're going to get is the Nazi. I mean, well, we already have the Nazi sympathizers, and this is why the Rage Against the War Machine rally scared the living fuck out of me, because the fact is that Lindbergh made points there going, we don't want to have America in a war, but it's not that we don't want to have America in the war because we want to save America. It's we don't want America in the war because we want to be part of this side. And that's where, when we're talking about the Russia and the Ukraine, we don't want to support the Ukraine, but we're going to support Putin. And that's where we're going, well, fuck, we can't have that, because if we're supporting Putin, then we're supporting homophobia, transphobia, racist, all that other shit. I mean, I believe we're supporting either. You take a side on either side, both of them are fucking racists and homophobes.
And so we're also supporting war. Like, you are supporting war. You can't say that you're anti-war and be like, but Russia should continue to invade. Like, that's crazy as fuck. Like, I don't understand. And even if you think that, Ukraine should be denazified or whatever, then I feel like it is a responsibility of the allied states that have been supporting that government, that actually put that government in place, to do something about that isn't just blowing up the whole country. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that while, yes, and also I know that this might not be the most popular thing to say, but if a country of white people are racist, I mean, most countries of white people are racist, does that mean that we have to invade and bomb all of them. I don't understand. Like, the racism is going to exist because anti-blackness exists, capitalism exists, white supremacy exists. Until all those things are destroyed and dismantled and uprooted, we will continue to have countries that are blatantly racist, much like the United States as well. Like, you have United States and you have Ukraine. Like, we are some of the biggest harbors of Nazis or Nazi ideology in the world. So does that mean that Canada should come and invade and blow up our shit because we have Nazis moving throughout our country?
We have Nazis too. Our actual deputy prime minister. So who's the person that they're trying to groom to become prime minister? Her grandfather was a member of the Nazi party. And she sat there and with the Slava Ukraine Nazi symbol with the banner. They photoshopped it out afterwards, but the original post that we all saved shows her holding the Nazi symbol, and she's not spoken out against the Azov battalion. So yeah, don't expect Canada to come be anti-Nazi, because unfortunately we've got those. And so on the other side of the coin there, we have the Nazis, and then you have the freedom fighters, which are they really freedom fighters? And this is the argument we come up with because of the fact that we have the comedians that have their platforms that talk about support of the trucker convoy in Canada. I'm going, well, the majority of the people that were there weren't actually truckers. They were freedom fighters or anti-vax or anti-mask or anti-authority. And which is funny because I'm anti-authority. That's why I'm one of the most, like, everyone claims that they're the most censored fucking podcast or whatever out there. I'm the most censored thing. I have 12 subscribers on YouTube, but have had my show pulled 3 times. Like, how the fuck do you get your show pulled 3 times with 12 subscribers? Who am I reaching? Like, that's how the censorship is there, that people don't want an actual truth. The truth in the matter is the fact that when you're getting behind the freedom fighters, you're getting behind the Proud Boys, you're getting behind the Boogaloo Boys, and okay, you might get them to your ideology for a time, but unlike, because everyone brings up Fred Hampton and the Rainbow Coalition, and unlike the Rainbow Coalition and Fred Hampton, when they discussed a collaboration, it was, we're not going to have you racist, like the racism and shit's got to stay outside.
And the Young Patriots were already an anti-racist socialist organization.
Exactly.
And we're in coalition. So
it's not like we went and got Charles Lindbergh and his American Nazis to come and go, you know what, you shouldn't be a Nazi. You should come and fight with the Black Panthers. Like, it's not... Fuck, you're gonna bring a Nazi in? Well, what happens when you bring in a fascist? Number one, my philosophy is one fascist at the table means you have a table full of fascists. Because if you allow a fascist at your table, then you've allowed fascism to overtake, because you're providing them a space at the table to spew their rhetoric. The second thing is, fascism is all about the power and control and imperialism. Now, if for some fucking crazy reason that a group with the fascists and the leftists and whatever come together and we are able to overtake the oligarchy, fuck, you think the fascists are going to let the leftists go and lead? No fucking way. The leftists are going to have their throats stepped on and they're going to be decimated as quickly as the oligarchy was. It's all about power and control. So when we're looking at it from a leftist perspective, like for me personally, I want leaders like you. I want Indigenous people to lead us to fucking to take over. Like this whole thing of land back and unconditional reparations now. That's what needs to fucking happen. That's the only way we will get out of this fucking mess. Because if we just keep allowing white privileged and white supremacy and fucking colonialism to ride high, and capitalism will always crash. It can never sustain itself, because it's like fucking the Harry Potter fucking turf books and the monster that eats itself. It will kill itself. So you need to have, like, everyone talks about, well, we need a different system. Well, how the fuck do we get the system? Like you said, you have people that we, in good faith, like Bernie Sanders. I'm going to bring him up because it pisses people off every time someone brings up Bernie Sanders. So feel the burn and all whatever. Bernie Sanders did an amazing thing by engaging youth into politics, 100%. Then he sold out and he fucked people over on the way out and went and took his thing. And the worst part is he won't even fucking admit that he's a Democrat. I'm an independent, but I vote with the Democrats. No, you're an old fuck that has maintained control over a movement to stop it from actually going anywhere because Jim Crow Joe and fucking Skeletor Pelosi have told you will not get a seat at this table unless you stop any movement that would affect our system. And that's where we're going. Like, people are saying, well, we have to get in, we have to vote people in to change the system. Well, the only way we're going to vote people in to change the system is if they're not affiliated with either party. That's the only way. If you're inside the party, you cannot tear it down. AOC, Ahan is the only one that has any integrity left out of the squad. The rest of them have fucking sold out, sold books, become authors, and all this thing of, well, we have to stop the billionaires because we're all millionaires now, so we don't need to talk about millionaires anymore. Like Bernie's narrative was, we can't have millionaires, we can't have billionaires. Now it's, we can't have billionaires. We're the millionaires, Bernie. All right, you are one. So we're not going to talk about erasing the millionaires anymore. We're just going to talk about the billionaires. So when you have the elite class that continues to allow these people, we don't have a system that's working. We don't have something that's going to bring in change. So when we're looking at change, I look at Shama Sawant as a example of someone who could bring in change. I'm not sure if she wants to do that. I don't know. Like, everyone talks about, well, this party and this party. I mean, yes, Dr. Jill Stein, Green Party, if they ran as the people that are there, that would be different. But there needs to be something else, because the duopoly, you join the duopoly, you're not going to tear it down. They'll just make a bigger fucking tent and destroy whatever you got.
Yeah. And then I just, lastly, I just want to say, because I do have to hop soon, but
yeah, no worries.
Sorry, I am very paranoid and my window's open. I keep hearing.
Go ahead. You can.
But no, it's okay because I don't see anything. But
okay.
Yeah, I think it's just really important for the left to take advantage of whatever opportunities that we can get to actually snatch power away. My problem with, Ilhan and a lot of members of the squad, first of all, I know some of them personally, some of them know me, some of them follow me still, possibly. We'll see.
So maybe don't let them see this part of the show, but anyway.
But, even Ilhan, she had activists that came and confronted her at a community event about, the bombings that have been going on in Somalia and how she felt about that, because she is a Somalian refugee and she just walked the same line. And it's just really frustrating because, I understand, because I do a lot of like organizing work and stuff out in PG County, Maryland, well, Prince George's County, Maryland. And a lot of those people are very, very establishment Democrat people. I worked on a coalition. I'm still working with a housing coalition in Maryland. And there are like, they fully support and believe in going through the electoral process. And I think what's really tough about being a leftist sometimes is you can really find yourself ideologically on an island. And especially when you're trying to make change and you're trying to push for progress, there are certain, procedural barriers that are in the way of that, especially if people aren't going to like take up arms tomorrow and do other things, like, especially if we're not there. If we're not there, then what are we going to do to actually change the material conditions of what we are dealing with? Because it isn't just of course, I'm a queer person. I support my trans brothers and sisters, but it's not enough to just be correct in our language and have the correct pronouns and all that stuff and be able to, have the inclusive stuff, like all that shit is great, you know what I'm saying? But it does nothing to actually secure socioeconomic safety for trans people. Yes, while I think gender affirming care is a step in the right direction, because we do live in a society where that is still so binary when it comes to gender. So the feeling the need to quote unquote pass is something that I cannot invalidate for trans people that want to go down that route. As much as I wish that those things did not exist and people could just be without all of that. But you know, it's really past just the language of it all. It is deeper than that. We have to start talking about the socioeconomic effects of the policies that are being passed by our quote unquote leaders. We have to talk about the fact that so many of the people that we are literally being like coerced into supporting are not actually fighting for us. They're not actually being adversarial to the system. And I think it's just really important for us to have some kind of, like, whether that's break with the Democratic Party, like somebody who's actually willing to stand up to the machine, even if that means that they're going to have to sacrifice their political career for it. I think that careerism is way less important than actually being morally sound. And it's frustrating because I think there is a way to be in these rooms. I mean, because I do it all the time. Like, I sit in rooms with state delegates from Maryland, and we all talk about I just got in an argument with the state delegate yesterday about how it's important for anybody to be in the Democratic primary simply for ideological reasons. Even if you don't think that she can win, I think it is important for us to see the democracy. There is still some semblance of democracy in this country, because what is happening is you have the Democratic Party, who in 2016 participated in really anti-democratic things. You have a history in this country where there have all the past Republican presidents for like the past 40 years have not actually won the popular vote. And there is a pattern of, just anti-democratic behavior on both sides. So when you have the Democratic Party like moving primaries and basically refusing to actually participate in the whole debate process simply because they just want to ordain a leader that actually does not represent so much of the party. Only 12% of the Democratic Party even wants Joe Biden to still be the leader. We're seeing things like that. I think it's time for all of us to start to question what the true intentions and motives of this system is. And I think that, especially considering that, like people like, you and myself, we are ideologically just farther along because we have more information, we have more education, we have more of an understanding of how these things actually operate in our lives and who actually has power and how that power is exercised, through policy and everything else. We understand that, but it's about trying to break through to like some of the normies. Really, like that's what they are. There are more people, especially young people, that I feel like that are accessible in that ideologically accessible in that way, that we really need to start having rigorous conversations with, because Joe Biden is 87 million years old. He just approved the Willow Project, and he probably won't even be alive to see the ribbon actually get cut when it's actually done.
He'll be buried under the willow tree before the Willow Project gets started.
That's fucking crazy. At some point, young people have to take some responsibility for our own futures. We cannot continue to just sit down and shut up and allow these misleaders to tell us, hey, wait your turn. Let us burn the world first. And maybe when you get here, when you learn a little bit, when you actually grow up, is what I've been told in Prince George's County, Maryland. When you grow up and you see that not everything that we can't have socialism, then, everything will be better. And then you'll just continue the neoliberal, system that's been going on, and capitalism will continue and the world will fucking burn, because we live on a finite planet and capitalism is supposed to be infinite. There's literally no way to square it. with our earth. There's just not.
No.
So yeah, like that's really where I'm at. And I think that that's where our real power comes from. I just genuinely don't think that, I just really don't think that continuing to just listen to what we're being told on mainstream media or through our like Twitter or whatever is even worth, like it's just not worth engaging with anymore. So
Well, but with that being said, we'll go to your Twitter because you are doing, I mean, you're doing amazing things in PG, you're doing amazing things in DC, but you also want to do some amazing things in a country we're not going to say because the idea I had would do a mutual aid for May Day. Or May Day for mutual aid, whatever the fucking case may be. Whatever it is, the wording is that we won't use a C word, and it's a different C word, people. It's not the one that rhymes with bunt. Anyway, so you've got this great idea that you're going somewhere on May Day, and you're raising money for medical and mutual aid. Is that correct?
Yes. So I am just helping transport the medical supplies. So I'm really fundraising for the actual like expenses. You know, organizers don't make a lot of money, and the organizers that are making a lot of money, don't listen to them. So I do not have $30,000 to pull out of my ass to go anywhere at any time ever. And a part of what I'm so committed to is building relationships all across the globe. This isn't the first time that I've been in international spaces. A lot of the spaces that I have done internationally, like I did the UN Youth Envoy, like 2 years ago, and I met a lot of really great activists and organizers from all across the world, Egypt, Morocco, just a bunch of different really amazing people. We actually got to speak to the UN and have those conversations and talk about the crimes of all of our different governments. So this isn't the first time that I've done international building, and it's something that I'm really committed to. And something else that I've been doing these past couple of years is really just trying to be a student of the movement and make sure that if I'm going to be an organizer, that I'm going to do it in a way that is effective and sustainable. Because, you know, as much as we would all love for all this shit to be burned down tomorrow, it's just not going to happen. So we have to find ways to, you know, just build community, create those connections. So that's what I'm going to be going to do. I'm just really excited to do that and just continue the work that I have been so dedicated to for the past 3 years, and just finally experience, you know, scuba. So
and, yes, the scuba and needing the scuba gear, and that's where we were talking about community and connection, and we've been connected for a while, and I had this design sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to launch the design, because I saw the original post was a gentleman posting of the signs of fuck, basically fuck off, leave the trans people the fuck alone, sort of thing. I'm okay, well, we could go with that, but then it would probably get muted or some of those other things. So I took that premise of that design and created the respect the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, or I'm going to identify as you/your problem. And I know grammatically it is not fucking correct. I'll totally understand that, but when we're talking about pronouns, pal, that's why we did the you/your. And so why we're talking about that, it's yeah, you can support the show and all that other stuff, but no, we want to donate proceeds from these items and the item that the Don't Be Trash mug that has got some pick up there today from Renee posting. She got hers, so you guys can get yours, and you can get it all at the Ko-Fi, it's like thecoffee.com, the Talking Truth Shop. The link is in the description on the video. Link is in the bio of all our social media. And from now until the end of April, because we got to get this young lady the money before she can travel, all the net proceeds from sales of these items will go to May Day for mutual aid. So for scuba, absolutely. So you can get that, and it's a way for you to display your displeasure against the transphobe and all the other bullshit that's out there, the Ron disenfranchised and the rest of the assholes that are out here. Because, like you said, we can't just go with pronouns, we can't just go with it, whatever, but we have to fucking actually display a fight, because too many people are not saying anything. They're just fucking sitting there watching our 2S community be decimated. And why do you say our 2S community? I'm 100% straight. I'm not saying that, but I'm a father of one, if not our youngest, as members of the 2S community, and our oldest is trans. So that is why I stand up, and that's why I'm the dragon dad. That's why I'm angry dad, and that's why I will sit and fight till my dying day that we need to respect the 2S community. So we came up with a design. Get the shirt. The best thing is we're talking about we don't want to fucking burn the world. So with our merchandise, we use a very different circumstance in all of the merchandise. We use merch done differently. All our merchandise is ethically sourced. It's ethnically diverse print. Our distribution center is an Iranian family owned operation based in Ontario, Canada, and Ohio in the United States. And we're environmentally conscious with the printing practice because we use a just-in-time method, which means until you order the item and the order is placed, nothing is printed. So we're not killing the environment with a bunch of fast fashion bullshit. We're having every item designed at the time when it's purchased, so you're not wasting any of the stuff. I don't have 10,000 fucking shirts behind me, and the items that we're using are next level t-shirts and champion hoodies, which are quality, and like I said, they're ethically, like ethnically and ethically, they just totally send me for a loop, but they're ethically sourced. So we're not using any exploited labor. I understand that our print distribution center is not unionized. Everyone's like, oh, is it unionized? No, it is not. But I can guarantee that their employees are treated well, because if you go and look at the reviews from their employees, they've got a 4.5-star rating on Glassdoor and Indeed. Also, the fact is that all their employees are given every holiday off, be it the United States or Canada. All of the holidays, you can order this stuff, it goes in, but nothing's going to be produced until the following week when those employees come back. So it's not unionized, but if you look at the unionized suppliers in the United States, most of them are connected to the big money of the Hillary Clintons and the Democratic Party. So we went with a non-unionized, but it's a family-owned operation that takes care of their employees. So that's why we went the way we go. We're doing merch different. So people say, oh, I can get this elsewhere. No, you can't. The only place you can get it is at our Talking True store. And remember, all the net proceeds from the items until the end of April. So from now, which is almost the end, like the 23rd of March, we'll go until the end of April, the last week of April, the proceeds are going to the Mutual and Medical Aid for May Day and scuba.
Yay.
So that's what we could do. That's the best we could do. If you guys want the merchandise, yeah, go and order it. I mean, it's great. I've got my mug. We might put that back on there. If you look, it's all curries are beautiful.
That.
Because I had to pull it off because locally here we had 2 police officers shot by a 16-year-old boy. And before we get into the story of what mental health supports the boy should have had, and where everything went wrong, we already know that ACAB, all curries are beautiful, but to avoid a mass amount of hate coming to our way, I pulled that merchandise for the time being. We will bring it back after the April for the mutual aid for May Day, and then people can purchase that. And we'll have other Curry merchandise. Curry is my mixed rescue dog that we got in December. He's a beautiful boy, and he was rescued off Indigenous land. We got him. He was all scarred up and all that stuff. So he's been abused. So he is just a dog that's gone through trauma that we love and we support. And yeah, I can make merchandise that shows his beautiful face and stuff. We'll do that. But like I said, right now, that stuff is on hold. We are 100% behind the Respect the 2S community. Is there anything else, Afeni? How can people get a hold of you? I saw TikTok. I saw we'll change the YouTube description there and add your links to your TikTok. And you also have a friend that wants to go to college. Is that correct?
Yes. But she's actually been taken care of. We got her some grants as well.
Awesome.
So we do, like, she is still fundraising to cover some of like what the grants didn't cover. But yeah, her grandmother, they're sorting all that stuff out. Yeah, everything you can find me on Red Azari. They banned TikTok, so I guess it's only a matter of time for we literally can't even access the app anymore. So we'll see whenever that happens. But on everything you can find me at Red Azari. And I'm just really grateful to speak with you, comrade, and thank you for everything that you're doing and supporting me. I'm just really grateful to be in community. So,
well, I'm grateful for everything you do. We can't be on the ground based on medical aspects. So when we can help you guys out and you get on the ground in our place until we can get there, we appreciate everything you've done and you continue to do. And we wish you all the best. And hopefully we can raise a boatload of money to cover your supplies and cover that trip, because it's going to be good. And it's something that's very important for that. So we thank you as well.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Have a great night.
You too.
And that was a fantastic conversation with Afeni. And like I said, you can find her at Red is Ari on all social media. Check it out. Check out our store. We've got good shows coming up. We're going to have a one-on-one with member of the Green Party of Alberta coming up in the near future. So watch for that, and we'll have more discussion on other things next week. Like and subscribe on YouTube until they shut us down. Follow us on TikTok until they shut that down. Follow us on Twitter until that goes down. Fuck, what are we left? I think we're all going to be going back to MySpace. So anyway, you can support the show, code-fi.com/talking truth, and we will see you all next time.